kuula hiena neitä kanta, kuula maattara kuijana, hiena lämmin puhka jätmi, tamjus kotia jajatmi, tamjus kotia jajatmi, hei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, hei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, hei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, hei 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 on lojolo, rei on lojolo, ecco diktan ja chapaino, ecco ieskemelde kilpus, kuulla maattu tallus järre, ikko muiste koston muleg, ikko muiste koston muleg, tussa huoppa, tussa vielä, hulli amri harve vuutin, ruona ietnan käde kerittuin, ikko muiste koston muleg, ikko muiste koston muleg, hea haia, hui haia, hea haia, hui haia, hea haia, haia haia, hea haia, hui haia, kuula neitä kanta, kuula maattu talu churava, monin ottaja nandeleva, mirko tuupo kuoriru, kuula hiena neitä kanta, kuula maattara kuijana, hiena lämmin puhka jätmi, tamjus kotia jajatmi, tamjus kotia jajatmi, hei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, hei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, hei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, rei on lojolo, hei 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 on lojolo, rei 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 on lojolo, r
Good morning. Welcome to chapel this morning. Many thanks at the beginning of this week to the Academic Affairs for their leadership and hospitality this morning, and to Dr. Lisa Sethre-Hofstad. Many thanks not only for your homily this morning, but for thinking deeply about this service from gathering to sending. And so, you are welcomed wholly into a time for reflection about whole self and whole life.
Land
A reading from Psalm 8. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth, you whose glory is chanted above the heavens, out of the mouths of infants and children. You have set up a fortress against your enemies to silence the foe and avenger. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars you have set in their courses, what are mere mortals that you should be mindful of them, human beings that you should care for them? Yet you have made them little less than divine, with glory and honor you crown them. You have made them rule over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet. All flocks and cattle, even the wild beasts of the field, the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and whatever passes along the paths of the sea. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth.
A reading from Exodus chapter 3, verses 3 to 12. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at the great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called out to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. Indeed, I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them from the Egyptians, and to bring them out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the country of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. The cry of the Israelites has now come to me. I have also seen how the Egyptians oppressed them. So come, I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? He said, I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God on this mountain.
When I was a young child, my parents often read to me and to my sister. When very young, we often read from the Archbooks series, which were children's books that focused on stories of the Bible. For instance, there was Donkey Daniel in Bethlehem, the story of Mary's famous ride from the perspective of the donkey. There is Clem the Clumsy Camel, Jonah and the Very Big Fish, or Get Up, Lazarus. One of the books I remember most from this series was the story of the Good Samaritan. At one point in the story, the man who is on the road in need of help hears someone coming. One time while reading this section, my mom paused and asked us, who's coming? My sister, probably about 3 at the time, enthusiastically and confidently answered, footsteps. This month's chapel theme is Holy, Holy, Hands and Feet. Now maybe it's because I've always had a thing for shoes, but I found myself especially taken by the holy feet aspect of this theme as I've pondered this homily. Now, quite literally, feet carry us through life. And as a developmental psychologist, I tend to see the human experience as one big developmental journey. So this morning, I would like to weave together whole self and whole life with holy, holy, and feet, striving for an overall message about 2 things: walk with care and walk with purpose. Footsteps, leaving footprints as symbols of where we have been. What about those footsteps my sister imagined? What kind of footprints do you leave behind as you journey through life? Recently, my father brought a box to our house. The box contained a random assortment of things that belonged to me. As I looked through, I discovered bits of evidence of my past. A little book called School Years provided HLC-worthy assessment evidence that I could write my numbers in kindergarten. The Good News Bible I received from my parents for Christmas in 1976. The essay I wrote when I applied to Concordia College, profoundly titled, What I Expect from My College Education. And an advanced clarinet methods book, which included the etude I played when I auditioned for the Concordia band. Now, I guess these are all a part of the footprints I have left behind as I have grown and developed over time. What impact did those moments that included those items have on me? And more importantly, how did my being present in those moments impact others who were also present? Dr. Cherry, theologian at Princeton Theological Seminary, spoke to our campus in September during the fall symposium on happiness. She shared with us that she came to be most interested in the topic right when her beloved husband had died, and she wondered if she could truly ever be happy again. Her discussion with us on whether or not we can flourish, even in the midst of languish, really hit home with me. She argued that we can, and she talked a little bit about how to do so. Helping others to flourish, she said, to be their whole selves, to honor their whole lives, is part of what helps us to flourish. So being in service to others is part of how we honor our whole self, according to Cherry. John Neefsey, in his book, A Sacred Voice is Calling, refers to knowing ourselves and being ourselves as having a sense of personal authenticity. He offers that achieving an honest integration of personal authenticity and responsibility to others is actually rather complex and challenging. He argues that there is inherent tension in our strivings for wholeness and holiness, and that the tension centers around the complex moral task of finding a discerning balance between being ourselves, or wholeness, and behaving ourselves, which is holiness. Holy, holy indeed. Now, these ideas raised by both Cherry and Neefsey brought to light for me several questions that I will now ask you. How have you used your journey to impact the journey of others? Do you walk alongside your colleagues, your roommates, your friends, your parents, and your neighbors, helping them to flourish as they navigate the messiness of life? How do your actions build their confidence, giving them permission to fail, recover, and try again? Do you encourage and support their attempts to be different and live outside of what society considers to be acceptable or normal? Or do you walk all over people, tearing them down with your words, fueling the lingering doubt in the backs of their minds about their capacities and gifts, or use equally harmful passive-aggressive strategies that pull them down as you build yourself up? Has your enthusiastic affirmation of another's dreams resulted in the achievement of results that helped everyone? Or has your eagerness to get ahead left in the dust a dream untouched or a path not dared traveled for your companions? Dr. Cherry said it quite clearly. When we tear down, it's neither good leadership nor good companionship. Neefsey puts it this way: the call to authenticity requires psychological honesty, which means we need to acknowledge and take responsibility for the shadow dimensions of ourselves. Today's psalm reminds us that God made us rulers over the works of our hands and put everything under our feet. I take from this that we are in charge of how we behave, and behavior matters. How we treat others matters. And ultimately, Dr. Cherry said, God is happy when we flourish together. So if someone asks, who's coming, and it is you, those are your footsteps, what does that mean for the person who hears you? Walk with care. Choose wisely where and how you step. I can think about times in my own life when the messiness of life felt like it was breaking me into pieces rather than making me feel whole. There was the time when I left graduate school, bought a house, started a new job at Concordia, and had our first baby all in 1 month's time. I don't recommend that, by the way. Or how about when I got the phone call that I had been promoted to full professor while I was riding in the car on the way to bury my mother? What are those moments for you? How do we flourish in the midst of languish? Both of the musical artists featured today found ways to flourish in the midst of their individual languish. And the songs for today were intentionally chosen to reflect the message of power, love, and respect for ourselves and for others. What footprints are we leaving behind as we journey ahead? Today's lesson, Lord said to Moses, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." The Lord was concerned about the suffering of the Israelite people in Egypt. Moses was called to bring the people out, and God said, "I will be with you. I will be with you." Thank God. During the 2 examples I shared with you and numerous others, thankfully God was with me. So walking with care also means with ourselves. What are the moments when you feel most whole, or if you feel most holy? Or perhaps a better question, when you do not feel whole or holy. Do you walk away, or do you lean in with a sense of purpose? This leads to my second challenge this morning, and that is to walk with purpose. I want us all to consider deeply what it means to lean into our lives, our whole lives. I believe we must tread carefully in our interactions with others, but guess what? We owe it to ourselves also to step eagerly into our own lives. It is not up to others how we feel. It is not the other person's job to make us feel whole, to live holy, with integrity, with sincerity, with trustworthy, and live with honor and respect. That is up to us. Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, created a bit of a stir when it was published earlier this year. She's the chief operating officer of Facebook, second only to Mark Zuckerberg in the company. I could talk all morning about the book and what I took away from reading it, but her overall message was clear. Lean into your life wholly. Don't apologize for your message before you even state it. Don't start to find ways to pull back before it's even necessary. If you've ever been to the ocean, you know that if you shyly enter the water, the waves will knock you right over. You must lean into them in order to stay standing. But it's not always easy. Cherry cautioned us against the danger of self-neglect and argued instead for living in ways that are mutually benefiting self and other. And according to Nifsi, the great emotional and spiritual challenge of the call to wholeness is learning to acknowledge and accept and love ourselves just as we are. Loving ourselves, it turns out, is no easy matter. Just like the psalm today said, through the praise of children and infants, you have established a stronghold against your enemies to silence the foe and the avenger. Through praise, establishing a stronghold against our foes, sometimes we are our own worst enemy, are we not? Lean into the wave, lest it knock you right over. At this point, my two challenges might seem in direct opposition. Walk with care and walk with purpose. Tread carefully, but lean in. That's the beauty of the messiness of life, my friends. Nuances in the real world allow, maybe even require us to navigate the journey differently, depending on what is called for in our actions. Clearly, different shoes are needed for different life events. The picture on the screen kind of represents the flourishing in the midst of walking with care and with purpose. This is a photo of my husband and me on top of the Grand Teton in Wyoming after one of the most exhilarating mornings of my life. This represents a tangible example of living the tension between walking with care and walking with purpose. Every step you take while on such a climb is done with precision and care. But there's no time to ponder or be too careful. The sense of purpose is real. You're racing time, the weather, the elements, and frankly, this mountain doesn't really care if you make it safely to the top and back down again or not. The tension between pushing ourselves, leaning in hard to our lives with a sense of purpose, but at the same time walking with care, is all too real while taking these steps, these footsteps. So to you I say, consider for you what it means to be whole, to feel whole, to honor one's whole self. Find ways to flourish and do so even in the midst of the messiness of life. Find ways to embrace your gifts so that you and those around you can flourish. Do this in community with others, with friends and colleagues who care about you as a whole person, and with faith guiding your steps. Walk with purpose. Be strong. Be whole. Be yourself. Be holy for your whole life. And make sure that the footprints you leave behind are made with care and purpose. Point your feet in the direction where you want to go, and remember that God is with you every step of the way.
is one of many possible worlds, all for the best or some bizarre test. It is what it is, and whatever. Time is still the infinite jest. The arrow flies when you dream. The hours tick away, the cells take away. The watchmaker keeps to his schemes. The hours tick away, they tick away. The measure of a life is a measure of love and respect. So hard to earn, so easily burned. The measure of a life is a measure of love and respect. So hard to earn, so easily burned. In the fullness of time, according to nature and protect. In the rising descent of the sun, till the stars go spinning, spinning round the night. Oh, it is what it is, and forever. Each moment a memory in flight. The arrow flies while you breathe. The hours tick away, the cells tick away. The watchmaker's time up his sleeve. The hours tick away, they tick away. The measure of a life is a measure of love and respect. So hard to earn, so easily burned. In the fullness of time, according to nature and protect. It's a measure of a life. The treasure of a life is a measure of love and respect. The way you live, the gifts that you give. In the fullness of time is the only return that you expect. The future disappears into memory, with only a moment between. Forever dwells in that moment. Hope is what remains to be seen. Forever dwells in that moment. Hope is what remains.
Go in peace. Serve the Lord.